Hi, my name's Damian Johnston, and I'm the PTI guy. I'm a platform tennis enthusiast, intermediate level player, a volunteer for my local paddle league, and a member of the American Platform Tennis Association Board of Directors. I'm currently the chair of the APTA PTI Algorithm Committee, and these are videos aimed at demystifying the PTI and maybe even answering some of your questions. Today's video is, why did my PTI change? I didn't even play. It is not uncommon for players to resume playing after a break and find that their Platform Tennis Index or PTI has changed since their last match. This video will explain how and why this happens, offer suggestive points of view, and address a few myths about the PTI system and the manual adjustments made by league PTI committees. The PTI system is a fluid system. This means that current data depends on all historical data. Historical updates and corrections can ripple through to present time. These calculations are consistent for all players. It's important to remember that a player's absolute rating matters less than the difference between players' ratings. For example, it's less meaningful to say he plays to a 37. It's more meaningful to suggest that they are a team that's rated 10 points lower than their opponents. Let's see how historical updates occur and how, going forward, how all partners and opponents are impacted consistently. In a previous video, we show how PTI adjustments are calculated after every match. And these adjustments depend on the results of that match and the ratings of all the players on the court. Of course, the four competing players' ratings depend on the results of their previous match and the ratings of their partners and the opponents at the time of that match. This means that your current PTI is calculated with a giant formula that includes your match history and the match history of all your partners and opponents, and the match history of all your partners' partners and your partners' opponents, and the match history of each of their partners and their opponents. Any change to a match result, player identification, player start rating, or confidence factor made by the APTA or League PTI committee that is in the historical chain of partners and or opponents will have an impact on that whole chain and to your current PTI. This historical chain of matches will ripple through time and leagues. And the reverse is true. Your current match will have an impact on the future PTIs of all your partners, opponents, and their partners and opponents, and so on. There are several types of corrections that can occur. Sometimes they're as simple as corrected set scores or the names of the players competing in the match. Sometimes there's confusion about which player is playing. Sometimes the same player plays in more than one league, or they register for a tournament with a different name, like Rob or Robert. When these issues are discovered and corrected, the match history changes. Other changes can include adjusted start ratings for players, or confidence factor resets for players. These steps are explained in another video, linked to below. Under rare circumstances, there are systemic changes to the PTI system. This might include resetting league defaults and correcting league skew issues. These issues will be discussed in another video. While these changes can occur at any time, there are noteworthy busy periods for leagues. These include immediately before a season starts, during player registration, after the first month of play, especially for new players and player linking issues, and after the end of seasons or semesters of play. Corrections to match results and adjustments to the rating system are also common before and after tournaments. When players register for tournaments, their player profiles sometimes need to be linked, and sometimes for unrated players, initial ratings estimates must be created. After the completion of the tournament, the unrated players have their estimates corrected, and the results are also reviewed for league misratings. Players should remember that many league administrators and tournament directors are just volunteers, and many are just learning how to review ratings adjustments. Several of them may be cautious about making adjustments. As a result, sometimes there's a delay before reviews occur. Usually these are days after events or ends of seasons, but can be much longer. And sometimes adjustments are warranted but deferred until they're very obvious. Adjustments are even sometimes made for data that is several years old. For players with many matches, their start ratings have little impact, as their current rating is dominated by more recent play. But sometimes correcting inaccurate initial ratings can improve how quickly league ratings can stabilize as a whole. Usually these situations are found during other review processes. Here's an example of a clearly inaccurate initial start rating. It can be surprising when you return to find that your rating has gotten higher when you've been away. Here are some things to remember when your rating unexpectedly goes up. Your formerly underrated partner might have been adjusted to a better start rating, or your formerly overrated opponent might have been adjusted to a better start rating. Similarly, your partner or opponent may have had a confidence factor reset. This does not mean that you got worse. The goal is for better consistency and accuracy of all ratings. Not surprisingly, I don't get very many emails when someone's rating unexpectedly lowers. But the same information is relevant in this situation. When your rating unexpectedly lowers, it doesn't mean you got better. The goal is for better consistency and accuracy of all ratings. Let's address some myths about PTI system adjustments. The first myth is that some hand of God or untrusted overseer comes in and selectively changes shit. The reality is that PTI committees and volunteers use defined processes to seek out outliers and iteratively make little improvements based on patterns of match data. This process is done manually because 1. Automation is hard, and 2. Manual oversight is always smart when we're dealing with people. The reality is this is bad advice. Matches are matches. If there are anomalies or skew between leagues and or tournament players, there are volunteers out there looking to find these anomalies and correct them. Another myth is that selecting which matches to play and who to play them with is a good way to improve your rating. The reality is that measuring player performance relative to expectations is the best way to come up with accurate ratings. Cherry-picking partners and matches will only have a limited and temporary impact on actual rating. Of course, it is true that partner compatibility matters, but strategically trying to find underrated partners is just setting yourself up for future disappointment. One last myth I'd like to address is that a player's current PTI is the most accurate and correct version of their rating. The reality is that player ratings naturally swing at least a couple points in each direction. Sometimes players are on a roll and have a good streak, and sometimes they're experiencing a drought of wins. Ratings tend towards a mean in the long run, absent any change in mobility, skill, or strategy. I'd like to encourage you to play a lot of good matches. Play to get the best accuracy. Play stronger teams to demonstrate you can occasionally win. Play weaker teams to demonstrate you can frequently win. Play similar teams to battle it out. If you try and game the system, it will be hard to defend an accurate rating, and any attempts to game it or success therein will eventually catch up with you. I hope you find this video useful. Feel free to leave your constructive comments and questions below. Let PTI be a reflection of your previous matches and not a goal. Remember, PTI is not a measure of ability, it's a measure of performance. The goal is to play the great game of platform tennis, compete in close matches, and most importantly, to have fun. See you on the courts.